mitzvah, mitzvah through ASMR. Good evening. Welcome back. I'm glad you're here because there's something really exciting that I want to show you. We were going through storage and we found a few items. There's one in particular that I really want to show you. So what I have found is this weekly prayer book known as a Siddur. And if you can see, it's very large. It's the size of my torso. And so I thought we could go over to the table and look at it, since it would be a bit difficult to open it and show you it this way. I don't want to damage it, so let's go over to the table, we'll look at it, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Siddur. Now, before we begin, we are going to light the Shabbat candles. I have this beautiful handmade glass plate. You can tell by the imperfections it is not a perfect circle, that it is handmade. And this was also found in storage. And it was said that it was made in Israel. I believe it was a gift. I don't know how it got lost in storage. But we will use it for our Shabbat candles. And now we will say the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. And so we will put this to the side, and I will now show you the weekday prayer book, the Siddur. And yes, as you can see, it is quite large. I was really blown away that we found something this large. And so let's open it up. And let's just read a little bit about it. I'll see if I can zoom in a little. This masterwork of Jewish liturgy was originally published in large print in 1979 in loving memory of a generous and beloved benefactor of the Jewish Braille Institute of America, Inc. Morris Morgenstern, Throughout his life, he demonstrated a keen and enlightened sensitivity to the religious and educational needs of the Jewish community. This second printing of Siddur HaShalem Daily Prayer Book, edited by Dr. Philip Birnbaum, in large print, is a gift to visually handicapped Jewry from many dedicated supporters of the Jewish Braille Institute of America, who are deeply committed to enabling the visually impaired to continue to revere their faith through prayer and devotion. So there we have it. We know now why this is such a large Siddur. It is for those who are visually impaired. And I don't know anything about the Jewish Braille Institute of America, but I think that's nice that that's incorporated in this in some way. And so this one is not in Braille, but it is large print. And so, let me back out a little bit. Okay, so let's read the introduction. The Siddur is the most popular book in Jewish life. No book so completely unites the dispersed people of Israel. If any single volume can tell us what it means to be a Jew, it is the Siddur, which embodies the visions and aspirations, the sorrows and joys of many generations. The whole gamut of Jewish history may be traversed in its pages. It is a mirror that reflects the development of Jewish spirit throughout the ages. Interwoven into the texture of the prayers are passages from the Bible, the Mishnah, the Talmud, and the Zohar. The poetic and philosophic creations of numerous known and unknown authors constitute a considerable part of the Siddur. No other book so thoroughly expresses the creative genius of our people across the centuries. Well, I'm not so sure about that. There's a lot of texts in Judaism, but I appreciate how much this introduction really values and appreciates the Siddur. Now, it mentions the Bible, the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Zohar. I don't think I'll do a very good job explaining them, but I want to try. So in Judaism, the Bible is the Torah. That's sort of like the story of our people. The Mishnah has been described to me almost like fan fiction, where the sages or rabbis, I'm not sure who, but they were so really interested in the stories in the Torah that they wrote more stories about the people and just more details, and kind of like imagined what their backgrounds were, or more things that happened in more detail. The Talmud is kind of like almost like a conversation or an argument between different schools of thought. It's kind of like looking at the way everything in life in Judaism should be and arguing about how things should be. That's at least my understanding of it. And the Zohar is about Kabbalah. Kabbalah is like Jewish mysticism, and it's kind of also about how to live and the different, I don't know, maybe planes of existence, like your body versus your mind. I'm not explaining it well. Okay, let's continue on. The Siddur passed through a long process of evolution until it finally emerged as a rich anthology of our literary classics. It abounds in quotations from every book of the Bible. It includes half the book of Psalms, the entire Song of Songs, and lengthy excerpts from each of the 5 books of Moses. The Ethics of the Fathers and other chapters of the Mishnah have been particularly popular because they form part of the Siddur, which contains also extensive selections from the vast Hebrew literature that was written after the Talmud. Though its language is largely biblical Hebrew, it embodies a great deal of post-biblical diction, Aramaic too, the common Jewish tongue that once replaced Hebrew for a long period. It is prominently featured in prayers like the Kaddish and the Yekum Porkan. Okay, let's continue on. There's some interesting things to read here if we look on this page. The Siddur should never become a source of contention among any segments of our people. One must not fail to realize that the Siddur is a classic similar to the Bible and the Talmud, to which the terms orthodox, conservative, or reform do not apply. And then this part is kind of interesting. It says, no one, of course, has ever attempted to prepare a reform edition of the Bible by removing the so-called objectionable expressions from the Torah or the prophets. Editors of the Siddur should not take liberties with the original, eliminating a phrase here and adding one there, each according to his own beliefs. Such a procedure is liable to breed as many different kinds of public worship as there are synagogues and temples. The danger of rising sects is obvious. Sects that are likely to weaken still more or harass people. The ever-increasing modifications in the text of the Siddur are apt to destroy this unique source of Judaism designed for old and young, scholars and laymen. So a little bit of opinion editorializing here, talking about the importance of the Siddur not being changed. And I would say my understanding of Judaism is that it is really big on tradition and keeping tradition alive. And people might change some things, when they have a Passover Seder. They might change some of the things that are on the Seder plate, but really the Seder story doesn't change much. And so I kind of see what it's saying about not changing anything so that we can keep the tradition alive. And I believe the Torah, all of the kosher Torahs are very, very, very similar to what we believe the original Torah had, which is pretty impressive. Okay, we'll just skip ahead a little bit. This is way too long to go through all of it, but I wanted you to get to see some of it. Okay, I have to read this part here. I just find it a little bit funny down here. A great many editions of the Siddur have suffered from gross carelessness. In the first place, the Hebrew text has not been adequately provided with punctuation to indicate the logical relation of words to one another. The prayers have therefore remained unclear even to those who have a fair knowledge of Hebrew. Opinions are still divided as to the groupings of the words of one of the most popular prayers, the Kaddish. For no sound reason, the pages of the Siddur are broken up by several type sizes, which have a confusing effect on the eyes of the reader. Those who learn the contents of the prayer soon discover that the emphasis suggested by the larger type is in most cases no emphasis at all. Why, for instance, should one part of the Shema be made to appear more prominent than the other? Why give the impression that Psalms or the ethics of the Fathers are of negligible importance? The variation of type sizes frequently causes mental stumbling and interferes with the proper appreciation of the Siddur. Our school children generally develop a prejudice against whatever appears in the small print. They imagine it as too hard to read or too unimportant to learn. I have to say that sometimes Siddurs can be confusing, and if you attend like Kabbalat Shabbat services, which are the Friday evening services, I've been learning the songs that we sing for that, and sometimes when you're reading the words, you'll have to like repeat a word, but it doesn't tell you to repeat the words, so you just have to kind of follow along from what everyone else is doing. Once you know, then you know, but there's no way to know when you're new until you realize people are repeating a phrase or a line. So I can understand how it can be confusing. Let's see. Let's continue on. We have a section here. Let's see. The present edition of the complete Siddur abides by the wise counsel of Rabbi Judah of Regensburg, who wrote in the 12th century, "He who copies a prayer book ought to copy every recurrent passage to the end, thereby dispensing what the worshippers need of searching for it." In this volume, each of the services is arranged as a completely integrated unit so that the worshipper is not called upon to search from page to page and to commute from reference to reference. The directions are explicit, brief, and to the point. The traditional text is left intact, carefully vocalized, and divided into sentences and clauses by the use of modern punctuation marks. Okay. So now it begins, and so let me just talk about this for a minute. Let me show you the table of contents, which I think is the next page. So you'll see down here, we just did the introduction, and so we have like the morning prayer, preliminary morning services, morning, afternoon, and evening services, counting the Omer and lighting for Hanukkah. So these are things for holidays. And I'm much more familiar with the Siddurim, that's plural for Siddur. I'm much more familiar with the Siddurim that are used for Kabbalat Shabbat services. I often go to Friday night Kabbalat Shabbat services, and so there is a Siddur specifically for that and for all the prayers and songs that you do in order. So that's one type of Siddur. This Siddur is for weekday, so I'm less familiar with the weekday customs, but this might be for someone who every morning prays, maybe even every morning, afternoon, and evening. And so they would use a Siddur like this to go through those prayers in those orders. Okay, now let's go back to that. Here we go. And so how this is set up is the Hebrew is on this side, and the English translation is on this side. And some Siddurim have what's called transliteration. That is when you'll have the Hebrew, and then next to it or under it, it will tell you how to pronounce these words. So it will use the English alphabet to tell you how to say these in case you can't read Hebrew or you're just not very good at it. I technically can read Hebrew, but I am very slow and I don't always know how to read everything correctly. If I look at this, this is the morning prayer. It's what you say when you wake up. And I'll tell you what it says in English in a moment. It is basically just giving thanks for being alive in the morning. And I know that it's called the Modeh Ani. So I know this says Modeh Ani. And I can also tell, let me zoom in a little so you can see better. So I know that's M-O-D-E, Modeh Ani. And then I think that's Lefaneha or Lefanaiha, Melech Hai Vakaim. And see, that's where I start to struggle with it. But of course, I can look up the transliteration. Okay, so Modeh Ani Lefanecha Melech Hai V'Kayim Sheheh Hetzarta Bi Nishmati Behemra Rabbah Emunateha. And so let's see what that says in English. And so in English we just said, I render thanks to thee, everlasting King, who hast mercifully restored my soul within me. Thy faithfulness is great. And so then we have a prayer for washing your hands. Some people, when they wake up, they will first say the Modeh Ani, and then they'll wash their hands, and they'll say a blessing when they wash their hands. I've been told that it's believed that when you sleep, your soul leaves your body, and so when you wake up, I believe you're washing your hands to cleanse yourself from wherever you went when your soul left your body. Something like that. And then there's one for, I'm not sure what Arba Konfoth is, but there's one for that and for one when you're getting dressed. Then preliminary morning service when you enter a synagogue, and this I'll just say in English. You would say, how goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your habitations, O Israel. By thy abundant grace I enter thy house, I worship before the holy shrine with reverence. O Lord, I love thy abode, the place where thy glory dwells. I will worship and bow down. I will bend the knee before the Lord my Maker. I offer my prayer to thee, O Lord, at a time of grace, O God. In thy abundant kindness answer me with thy saying. And then if you put on the talit, there's one for that. There's a psalm. There's one for when you put on tefillin. And again, I'm much less familiar with this Siddur, so I don't know all of these customs. I don't typically do the weekday. And then I'm not sure why, but there's an excerpt from Exodus here. I'll read some of it. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. So this would be Passover. And on the 7th day there shall be a festival in honor of the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten throughout the 7 days. No leavened bread shall be seen in your possession nor any leaven anywhere in your territory. And that's why people will go through their homes before Passover and get rid of any bread or anything with leaven in it. And you shall tell your son on that day, saying, this is on account of what the Lord did for me when I left Egypt. It shall serve you as a sign on your hand and as frontlets between your eyes, so the Lord's teaching may be ever in your mouth. For by a strong hand the Lord brought you out of Egypt. You shall observe this ordinance at its proper time from year to year. And so this is basically the Siddur. Hebrew on one side, English on the other. And I just think it was really cool that we found this in storage and that it's really a unique item because of its size and how it is for, well, it's designed for those who are visually impaired, but anyone can use it. And it's just kind of funny, the things you'll sometimes find in storage that were forgotten about. But yeah, thank you for letting me show this to you. I hope that you found it interesting. And now you'll understand why I told you that we had to use the table to look at this. We couldn't just do it with me sitting, or it would be quite cumbersome to show you. So what did you think? Yeah, it was pretty interesting to look at. I'm glad that you enjoyed it and you appreciate why we brought it to the table. It was so large. Okay, so let's relax and try to fall asleep. I'm just going to pluck away any stress from the week, from the day, from the month. And we're just gonna sprinkle some good energy towards you. And you're gonna close your eyes and go to sleep. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Good night. Good night. Good night. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed this, please like, leave a comment, and subscribe. And as always, Toda Rabah, Laila Tov. Thank you very much, and good night.